One time I had to go to the ER because in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, I fell and had a fin cut me right in the top of the head. Straight to ER. I think 7 or 8 staples right in the dome. And let me tell you, that was not fun. But I appreciate everyone for tuning in for another Hero's Journey live stream. Hope everyone's doing well. In this episode, we are going to dive in to why surfing is actually dangerous AF. Now, you would think you're surfing in an ocean, you're falling in a big body of water. What is the worst that could happen? Well, actually, a lot of things can happen. And just to start off this live stream, we're going to see how I sound and look. I look great and I sound great, per usual. No effort there. But just to start, like I said, we're going to go through like 3 or 4 of my biggest surf injuries just from the last 15 to 20 years that I can even remember. I had to write these down, and a few of these were pretty big injuries, so they're easy to remember. And a few of them I'm probably going to remember as the stream goes on. And let's not even get started about like wild animals or the ocean itself and how you can easily drown at any second. And then there's also aggressive locals. So we have all kinds of danger out in that water. But does that stop us? No, it doesn't. My worst surf injury would probably be back in the day when I was lucky enough to be in Bali, Indonesia, and I was surfing Uluwatu, which is one of the most famous waves in the entire world. And shout out to the country, as it seems they're going to be building some structure right there, and it could even cause the waves some chaos. And it's pretty crazy because the actual Indonesia country, well, let's not get into it too much, but you really can't be talking about that. So I'm going to have to zip it up here. But it wasn't that dissimilar from the Olympic tower they were building it for at Teopu. But back to the story. So I'm surfing Uluwatu. Things are going great. I drop it on a left. For some reason, I'm going to get barreled, and I pretty much just fly out. The board gets sucked up. So I go feet first straight into the dry reef. Now, it wasn't completely dry, but it was shallow AF, as the thumbnail and title say. But the thing about Uluwatu and a lot of these Indonesia reefs are the reef is alive. It's kind of like the Great Barrier Reef. It's not necessarily like California reefs where it's a lot of rocks and kelp and feels like you're kind of walking around on dead matter. I mean, it's alive, but it's not sharp. It's not like just flourishing with like colorful, crazy wildlife. It almost seems like a different kind of reef, and it is because in Indonesia, in Uluwatu, it is like the most alive, sharp, gnarly coral reef you're ever going to come across. So I fall, my feet go flat on the reef. So I basically fall on the reef and do one of these because it was either my feet are going to hit the reef or my body or my head or something. Something was going to hit the reef. And lo and behold, it was my feet. So, long story short, I step on the reef, drag my feet, and right away I know I'm effed. So, I paddle in, I get in both my feet, and I still kind of have scars today. Pretty much, I had 2 big just on each of my instep, kind of by my heel going down to the feet. So, both my feet looked like there was tiger claws that just on each foot. So I'm like, oh crap. So I go into the little Uluwatu village right there, and luckily some lady there helped me and like dropped the lemon juice all over the cuts. That was painful. That was definitely one of the like, oh, this is a painful experience. It somehow wasn't the worst thing ever because I knew it was like a necessary thing I had to do at the time, but it was still pretty gnarly. And so let's fast forward a week or two. So I'm putting Neosporin on. I'm doing what I got to do. I think I'm actually healing the wounds okay. Well, I'm not healing them okay. They are slowly becoming infected and yellow and pussy. And I'm young, dumb, full of you know what. And I think I'm doing everything I can. I didn't think this was like before the internet was even really like you would Google stuff. So I have no like frame of reference to look up things, or I'm just like, all right, I'm healing. This is what it is. I got cut by Reef. Well, I go to Australia just to like as a stopover before going somewhere else because I was in like that area of the world, and you have to like fly in and out of Australia a lot of times, go to Indonesia if you're not from Australia already. And I actually start feeling sick. So I start feeling like fluish and unwell. So I go to the doctor one day, and he pretty much put two and two together like, hey, you're sick because your feet are infected and you pretty much have staph infections. And again, I had no clue that you could even get sick from like reef cuts. That's how like hilariously dumb I was about the whole situation. How naive we used to be in the world when you couldn't just Google everything and get all this knowledge like right away. So luckily I had went to the doctor like before this really became an issue because he told me he was like, here, here's some antibiotics, take these ASAP. If you didn't come in here right now, there's a chance you would have lost your feet. And it was like the craziest thing to hear that just because I had went surfing and got cut open by reefs, that because they had become infected, I was gonna literally lose my feet. So that was like kind of like a huge wake up call. That was probably like one of the more intense injuries I've had. But luckily, with the antibiotics and being careful, it all healed up and I am still alive today. So thank you, Australian doctors. Thank you, Indonesia, for letting me out alive. One of my second biggest injuries, and that this was in the intro story, was in Outer Banks, North Carolina. I was surfing somewhere kind of random, as you can in Outer Banks, and there was one of these big stretches. I think shout out was Billy Mitchell, I believe, which is kind of like a big stretch of beach, like somewhere. I think it was near Avon. It's like kind of near Avon and Buxton. It's just this long stretch of beach, and this it's like a rogue area that you can drive on the beach there. And again, it was like a big Outer Banks gnarly day, and I'm surfing, and it's me and my friend and his dad. So my poor friend's dad, Craig Roberts, shout him out. His dad's name's Craig too. And um, long story short, again, I drop in. I don't even know what really happened. I think I was trying to get a right hand barrel, and I just got sucked over. And my board comes up, and my fin literally somehow just like one of the fins just cut right into the head. And right away, I was like, oh no, felt blood. So I paddle in, and then my poor friend's dad. We're realizing I'm bleeding. We're realizing this is actually pretty intense. So we have to drive to the ER, and I go right into like getting surgery on the top of my head. And it's just my friend's dad and me. And this poor guy is like, dude, I'm having to take care of my son's friend. Like, this is intense. This was even when I was younger. So I felt super bad for him. But luckily I was in the ER. The doctors were great. But I remember now that they took like the needle for Novocaine and they plug you and they just with the Novocaine, and it was like a crazy feeling to have this Novocaine needle in the top of your head in a wound, just pushing in. And I'll never forget that. So, and then the feeling of them taking your skull, taking a stapler essentially, and stapling your skull back together. And that was wild. And I couldn't feel the stapling because of the Novocaine, but that was another crazy incident where I was just surfing. I was having fun surfing, and I almost chopped open my head and bled to death. So that's another fun incident slash injury for me personally. Um, Now we're just going to talk a little bit about the wild animals you can encounter when you are surfing in the ocean. So, um, on the clickbaity thumbnail, you saw a few of our friends we get to see, but I think it depends on where you are in the world, what kind of animals you're going to deal with. Now we're going to start with some like lower level ones, but on the East Coast of America, a lot of animals you deal with, two main particular ones that really suck and they're not like as deadly. They're more of a pain in the butt, but they will hurt and you'll be living in pain. Are sea lice and jellyfish. Now, sea lice are like these little bugs that they kind of just come out of nowhere one day. And once like you get in the water and there's sea lice, there's not really like a way to escape them. The only way to escape sea lice is like have loose clothing and try to have them like just swim in and out of your clothes. But the minute you have any kind of wetsuit, so if it's like winter and you're wearing a wetsuit and the sea lice start getting in your wetsuit, that's the ultimate nightmare fuel because you just feel them in there and they're pretty much lice. So how you would imagine lice feel, they are itchy and bitey, and it kind of feels like just a little jellyfish sting or like a little ant bite or something, but it's just constant and it ends up like being really itchy after they bite you. So really it's hard to even surf when there's sea lice out, and they're kind of more prevalent in like the southeast when I forget if it's when the water gets like cold right away or warm right away, but they tend to like just pop up out of nowhere, probably due to like some upwelling or something. But when they come out, it's like it's a nightmare. You're just like, all the sea lice are out, like freak, what am I gonna do? And even me, like when it's board short weather, I still wear like spandex shorts under my board shorts for chafing reasons. And sea lice love getting into your spandex. They get into your short spandex and they're just swimming around and they're getting into hairs and it sucks. Like the sea lice thing, it's one of the worst. It's for some reason it really sucks. It like destroys any. The waves could be firing if there's sea lice out there. It's hard to have a good time. Um, Next is jellyfish. So you get to like be out there having fun, and then randomly you'll just get stung by a jellyfish. Now jellyfish are more prevalent in certain areas of the world. Sometimes they can, like in Australia, there's full on parts of the ocean that are off limits and closed because these box jellyfish have taken over and they will kill you. So the jellyfish stings you and the poison kills you. And you can't even go in the water. It's literally closed. A lot of places like kind of by Canes, but not where the reef is, but more like the beaches, the northeast beaches. Just have to deal with that. And I can't remember the particular beach that is closed there, but I just remember that and being like, wow, that's pretty crazy how the jellyfish are so big in this area. You can't even surf on the beach. So luckily in the Americas, jellyfish don't kill you as quickly, or they can't kill you unless maybe you get stung by a ton of them. But they're more of a nuisance. But trust me, it hurts enough where you do not want to get stung. Now let's up the ante a little bit. Now in California, we have stingrays, and I think stingrays are the most dangerous animal you have to deal with as a surfer in California because your chances of hitting a stingray are really high. Like you can hit a stingray at any time. Like it's not even that hard. Like, and you can be on your best behavior. Stingray shuffling till the cows come home, or the stingrays go away. But it's just due time when your time's gonna come, and it's sucks because most people do get stung by stingrays every now and then it's funny because it can be like like a life threatening incident, or it can be they can like graze you and it cannot do nothing, and you don't really know until the pain starts. And at that point, if you haven't gotten to hot water in time, it's going to be too late, and you're not going to have a good time. Um, and then the final boss of these sea creatures has to be sharks. And it's just wild to think anytime you are out there having fun, pursuing your hobby, your passion, you have a chance to get attacked by a shark. It's anytime you surf, you could get attacked. Now, it can be like a super low percentage, but as you see with these drones that we all own now and stuff, they're out there a lot more, or at least we see them more. And it asks the question like, so have they always been this popular and they're just like good at ignoring us, or like what's the deal there? As a surfer, you have, I would say, a couple levels of protection. I mean, you have a board that you're laying on that does just overall protect you by having a physical barrier between you and the water. A lot of people that do get attacked by sharks it's more happens as swimmers, unfortunately. And that's because they don't have a board. They look even more like a seal. And you're not really going to like the shark isn't gonna like see a surfer, or at least this is what like the scientists have figured out or whatever. They're not necessarily trying to eat humans and especially surfers because in theory they don't like how we taste. they usually think we're a seal, and then it's too late by the time they've realized we're not a seal. You do look like a seal when you're on the surfboard because you're even more of the shape of a seal. But I think that when you're swimming, like I said, you have one less barrier. You're usually further out. The last couple of tacks in Southern California have been swimmers swimming more further out in the water. So the danger there is for surfing, more so for swimming, but it's still a gnarly thing that people are thinking about all the time. Now, I'm personally way more scared of stingrays at all times because you have a higher chance of getting hit by one of those. But sharks are usually on your mind when the sun has set, your last one out, and you're like, all right, I want to go in before Jaws gets me. Um, Another one, urchins. But they would be classified, like in my Uluwatu story, as reef. Like they usually consist in a reef environment, but urchins they're like an animal, so they actually in real time get you. Like the coral will get you eventually with the staph infection, but the urchin will get you, and then right away you have venom, and they can be life threatening as well, depending on the type of urchin. And it can also be a very deep puncture wound. I mean, they're long and they'll stick in you, and then you got to try to get them out. And if you can't get them out, similar to the stingray thing, where that barb can get into you and it can break off, or it can just create such a gaping hole that you do need stitches or some way to stop the bleeding. Um, so this is a very fun talk we're talking about, but those are like the animals. Now let's get into, I would say they're not animals, they're the agro locals. So they will act like animals, but these are like aggressive humans in the water. You have to not only worry about animals, you hurting yourself, but you have to worry about other humans hitting you, wanting to fight you for some reason. I mean, even today, I had someone drop in, they were coming right at me. And if I didn't like jump out of the way, their board would have just hit me in the face, like right in the face. And this person was pretty clueless. I mean, I got up, I was kind of like pissed. You know, I was pretty shocked and just like, oh, sorry, that just happened. And he's like, oh, you okay? I was like, oh, yeah. And then he just paddled away. And I was like, give me that sorry. I need that sorry. Like, you got to be a little bit self aware to understand that. If you almost kill someone, you have to at least be like, oh, I'm really sorry about that. Oh, my bad. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, I apologize. I mean, at least I can guess he made sure I'm okay. But like, you almost injure someone severely. Come on, let me get a sorry. Like, give me that wave, like Jerry Seinfeld would say. Give me that sorry. So I didn't get my sorry. I was a little pissed, but I was just happy not to get slammed by this 9 foot longboard coming right at me. And it was one of those ones where like he kind of like didn't know how to stop the board and like didn't know what to do. And I was just like, oh, he's coming at me, so I'm paddling away. And then luckily I just dodged it. So you gotta worry about other people almost killing you. Um, and then also your own surfboard, like we already talked about in my head shop open incident, your own board can be like a serious lethal instrument. Anytime that board hits you anywhere, if it's not a foam board, even a foam board can do some damage. But these boards, it's essentially a glass on top of a styrofoam, but the glassing is kind of like it's not that different from a glass cup. um, so imagine a glass cup hitting you. It's with the same force. It's gonna it can mess you up. It can definitely like lacerate you just based on a blunt force. It can like break something. It can hit a bone. It can hit you in the head. So the board itself is super dangerous. Um, the fins, like we already talked about, it's obvious they're sharp. They are any point they can cut your arm, cut your leg, cut your foot. The fin will get you a lot. Um, the leash of your surfboard is actually very dangerous. It can wrap around toes pretty easily, which has happened to me before. You're going to stand up, the leash wraps around your big toe, or you fall and the leash wraps around your ankle. If you're not careful, that wave will take your board, pretty much tourniquet your body part within the leash, and just do it real tight. And leashes are, I mean, they're like a cord that's not meant to break. So if you get something wrapped around your leash and it pulls, You can get the leash wrapped on your neck and it can pull and do some damage. So the list is endless for ways to injure yourself surfing. And I thought this would be a fun topic. And then we haven't even talked about this, but drowning. I mean, you're in a giant body of water. The main concern as well for most people, before you go through this whole list and talk about all the things, most people are gonna, when you're talking about surfing, they're gonna think, oh, that's pretty dangerous. You can drown. That's something I think a lot of surfers aren't even thinking about. The fact that you're in a giant body of water that has rip currents, that has stuff underneath. You fall off your board, hit your head, go unconscious. Like that's it. It's it's so easy to drown in the ocean. That's the scary thing. Even for like serious body watermen, like it's not like it's you can still be really skilled and like be comfortable in the water. But if you understand that it's dangerous and you make a little mistake, it's not that hard to drown. I mean, rip currents exist that if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to start getting sucked out. And then if you don't make a play quick enough, you can get sucked into the jetties, just sucked out really far, etc. And I'm going to go through one more personal story about drowning. And it was actually someone that I saved drowning while I was surfing. I was a lifeguard for a few years, and I did have some like minor rescues. But this was actually the craziest rescue of my entire life. Right, the person might have actually died if I didn't save them, and it was pretty crazy because this is a bigger individual, and I'm at Venice breakwater in Venice, and there's a pretty bad rip current that goes toward like the jetty usually, and it kind of creates this like weird like suctiony current right next to the jetty. That the tides are right, and like if the swell's weird, it can be small but still like really dangerous right next to the jetty, the breakwater, and it kind of can even create like a suck down thing where you're getting sucked down, like down into the bottom. So it's deep enough. This guy was like 400 pounds. He was on a wave storm, I believe. And it's funny. So I'm behind him. He's paddling out, and I notice he's on the board paddling, and he's kind of struggling. And I'm just like, all right, this guy's kind of struggling. And I think just because I was used to be a lifeguard, I always kind of like I'm just checking people out. If they look like they're struggling, I'm gonna just keep an eye on them, maybe offer some help if I think that would actually be a thing. So he's slowly paddling, and for some reason, I'm just like, all right, this guy is definitely like something's going on. So I paddle past him, like, hey man, are you okay? And he's like, yeah. And he keeps paddling. I'm like, all right, you sure? Yeah. So, all right. So I paddle past him. And then, like, 1 minute goes later, and I look behind me, and he's off his board. And now he's kind of just like treading the water. And I'm like, and then this is where I notice, like, oh, this guy's not okay. Like, for some reason, this person is kind of like trapped in a rip current, wasn't getting anywhere. So I thought I'm going to get off my board to kind of like swim out of it. So he gets off his board and starts kind of like treading and trying to figure out what to do. And I see this luckily, and I'm a little bit out. So I turn and I start paddling towards him, and now I'm probably 20 feet away. And I luckily he sees me, and I see him, and I'm like, grab your board, get on your board, because you have a big floaty, a big life-saving buoy right next to you. If you're ever surfing and you're scared and you're like, I need help, just grab the board and like for dear life, hold on to that thing, because that thing is gonna just keep you above the water. So I'm like, grab your board, grab your board. And he's in panic mode. So he's not grabbing his board. He's just trying to grab like the air. And here's the surface, and I'm like 10 feet away. And then literally I'm 5 feet away. Grab your board, grab your board. And his head goes under. And I'm just like, holy crap. And literally right when his head goes under, I get to him and I like kind of pull him up a little bit. And then luckily his board's right here. And I'm like, grab your board. And like he somehow gets up and like grabs his board. And I'm just like, don't let go of your board. Do not let go of your board. He's like blue and like struggling, panic, shock, just scared for his life. Like doesn't know what's going on anymore even. He's just pretty much drowning. So luckily, I get him on the board. But now it's like, all right, now we're in this like rip current going against the jetty. Now I gotta like drag him into shore. So luckily, I start kind of dragging him, and the lifeguards don't. No one sees this. No one somehow no one sees this. It's the middle of summer. Luckily, my friend's out there. Shout out Will, and he's at the beach, and I'm like, Will, and I'm kind of pulling this guy in, and he's really heavy. I'm not getting anywhere, and he's almost like falling off the board. I'm just like, stay on the board, stay on the board, stay on the board. And he's just like if he falls off the board, then he's done. Like he was gonna drown because he was so tired and just so big that like he and the board was barely holding him. That if he fell off, he would have drowned. So luckily, I kept him on the board, and just kind of like slowly was able to like drag him in, and it was super eye opening that like you always need to have your head on a swivel, and I was just really grateful that I was able to like save this person. And we get to the beach, and I think I think he was embarrassed and just so shocked and like in disbelief and just like shocked that he really didn't even say anything. He just like got to the beach and just kind of like walked away. And it was a similar incident where I was like, give me my sorry. Like I just wanted my sorry. Didn't get my sorry. Or not my sorry, my thank you. I just wanted my thank you, didn't get my thank you. But that was an unbelievable moment where I was like really thankful to kind of have my skills and training to do that. But that just goes to show as well that even on a pretty small day, it can still be extremely dangerous to go surfing. So I'm glad I got everyone stoked on surfing today. We're all going to go have a great week of surfing, and surfing is the best. Surfs Up America. But I appreciate everyone for tuning in to another Hero's Journey live stream show. That was a fun one. Please smash the like, subscribe, comment below in the comments your worst surf injury. I kind of went through a few of my worst ones. It was funny I couldn't think of more. We all have little, bumps and bruises, but I think for me the couple of the main ones I did go through, and just some of the main incidents. So I appreciate everyone for tuning in again. Till next time, peace.